Long balls here on Morning Kicker on Friday, March 21st, first day of spring. My name's Robert. He's Jason. We are waking up to an era in which the men's national team will not win the Nations League. The men's national team lost 1-0 to Panama, breaking the streak of the Americans winning the competition every iteration since its creation in 2019. Some are saying that this is, a big blow. What say you after this 1-0 defeat from last night, Jason Davis?
I say, fuera Mauricio is what I say. Get him out of here. He's done. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not there yet.
That's the hottest of takes. I wasn't expecting some of that sizzling.
No, I'm not doing that. Look, we're not going to do better for manager right now than Mauricio Pochettino. But he is not perfect, and it's clear that based on last night's result, he is still learning about his team, about CONCACAF, about the challenge that the United States faces ahead of a World Cup in 2026. Now, I think a lot of us are realists, and we knew that Pochettino wasn't going to suddenly come in, wave a magic wand, and make this a world-beating team. He said some very big things ahead of the game, ahead of the Nations League finals, about potentially being the best team in the world in 5 to 10 years, and why can't we win a World Cup and things like that. And it's part of the job, right? It's part of the job to be like, oh, there's potential here. You don't come in and go, well, this is a disaster. Look at the mess I got to clean up. Smoking a cigar, like, oh, look at this. This is so terrible. That's not the job. The job is to be a booster as much as it is to be a coach. But, man, we can pick apart what he did last night. We could certainly say, why this, why that? And if you want an immediate reaction, you can go watch the best soccer show from last night that I did with Jared Dubois. But, man, what is Yunus Musa doing out there? What is he doing out there? Is he doing anything productive in that part of the field as a wide player when he doesn't have a dynamic ability to beat defenders and to make things happen? You knew that the field was going to be narrow. Was that a surprise, Robert? We talked about it before, right?
I knew it.
Do you think that Mauricio Pochettino showed up at SoFi and was like, oh, no, look how narrow this field is. We're going to have problems because what is Panama going to do? What has Panama done every single time they've made life difficult for the United States men's national team? They pack it in, they play a low block, they put 5 men across the back line. There is no space. So you're not going to get in behind. You got to find ways to stretch them. You got to find ways to bring them out. And the United States failed to do that. They weren't aggressive. They weren't quick. There's something that happens to this team when they get together. And it happened under Greg Berhalter, and it's happening under Mauricio Pochettino. They get together, they have the ball, but they play in a ponderous, overthinking manner. They look at the ball, the ball's received, and we're touching, and we're touching, and we're looking, and we're touching, and then, oh, maybe I'll make another pass sideways. Right? There's nobody making runs. There's nobody trying to get in behind. There's nobody forcing Panama to deal with things like maybe a shot or two from outside the box. I mean, those lanes are difficult to create, I understand, but if you're going to move the ball side to side, it cannot be it cannot be like that. You're not going to shift anybody and find pockets of space. And here I am emotional and angry. And I hate that. I hate feeling this way. Again, we can go through the tactics over and over and over and over again, Robert, but what mostly I'm feeling right now is just a complete and utter letdown. That it seems to be the same under Pochettino as it was under Berhalter.
What would that lead you to believe? That maybe it wasn't a coaching thing, maybe it's a players thing, maybe it's a mentality thing. But when I was watching it last night, I was thinking, I knew that without Jedi Robinson, that they would be lacking a little bit of that thrust, a penetrating player off the dribble. And When I was watching it on mute and just kind of trying to form my own opinions. When I was watching it, a lot of the players, they looked like they were playing training, to be honest. They looked like they were, doing their 3-player, triangle passing drills. And they would organize, like, get kind of an overload on one side, get a little bit of a triangle going. But there wasn't that thrust. There wasn't, like, someone running in behind. There wasn't a through ball after the triangle or anything like that. I feel like, though, in reaction, I was actually surprised by how, I don't know, for lack of a better term, pissed off everyone was this morning when I opened up the news sites. But to me, I feel like if Ajamin or anyone else finishes those couple chances they created in the last 15 minutes or so, I don't think that anyone's that cross about the selection. I thought that they played a conservative, patient game, but there wasn't enough urgency.
it's gonna be really hard for you to convince me because you just said you put it up as a binary. I don't think it's a binary, right? Coach, players, right? Mentality, you threw that in there too.
It's just how it
Sean,
is, maybe.
Sean says it's players. All right. Coach Julio says it's a player thing. We have okay players. I think he means like we don't have great players. We have okay players. I think that's true, but you cannot convince me that if Mauricio Pochettino makes a couple of different choices or the team has a different mentality, right? The quality of the players should not be in question if you look at where most of them play. Now, there's some exceptions, but we've got Premier League players on the field. We've got Serie A players on the field. We've got top-level players on the field, right? They are recognized by club teams that play in some of the top leagues in the world that they're good enough, and they start, and they play minutes. Okay, so now take them, put them together in a national team, and figure out how to wind them up and let them go and actually bring the mentality necessary to win. Now, I do think it's a little bit of kids these days and shaking your fist at the clouds and all of that to say like, well, we had a different mentality. You know, back when these guys were scrapping and clawing for a European opportunity, there was a different mentality. I think it might be true. A friend of mine, Kim McCauley, put up on her Blue Sky last night that she said, I'm getting to that place, the old person mentality of this team was better, not better in terms of quality player for player, but better back in the day because the mentality was we have to prove ourselves every time we step on the field. And playing for the national team was an opportunity to prove yourself when you weren't getting a look in Europe, when you weren't getting a top-level job somewhere at a top-level club. And now we've got players, and I don't think that they want this to be the case. I think it's subconscious, but there's got to be something else from the coach to unlock the mentality, right? We don't have pressure on these players. It was pointed out last night. I know Pulisic expressed his disappointment again about the crowd. Here we are talking about the crowd again.
It was like, 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that?
It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Los Angeles. That is a depressing, that's going to depress the numbers, even if the U.S. men's national team was super popular. But we also know it's not, right? We also know it's not. Not only do you not only is soccer not the number one sport, and our national team not an obsession of most of the country from a sporting context, it's also in a down period where things did not go well enough at the World Cup to capture attention. The Copa America was a disaster and got a manager fired. So, of course, there's not going to be that many people showing up buying tickets that CONCACAF probably is pricing at $250 per seat to watch the U.S. men's national team. When your expectation will be, even if we beat Panama, it's not going to be a fun time out at the park. All right, so that's where we are. Right? I think the players are good enough to beat Panama. But the mentality is
third time in a row Panama's
I know. And give credit. Look, if you look at the results, Panama's a better team. Against the United States, they're a better team. I think they're going to lose to Mexico. I think they will. But Panama's a better team. And that's something I can say fairly and give Thomas Christensen and Panama a ton of credit. Right? And obviously the celebration with Thierry Henry, everybody's talking about that today. Lovely stuff, I guess. And Waterman his hero is Thierry Henry, and he got to celebrate with him. What a lovely story. I'm pissed. I'm an American soccer fan. I'm a U.S. men's national team fan. I'm pissed, right? And I think this is what Pochettino's getting paid the big bucks for. Now figure it out. You learned a lesson, Poch? Figure it out. Let's go. Fuera Poch. No, not Fuera Poch.
No Fuera Poch. But I got to just to your point. Final kind of like speaking point on this in this long ball is just, I mean, how many players just like looked like they used their last drop of possible energy last night, and they went like 2 foot in, ruck things up, and just like by force and will physicality,
I don't love doing
make something
that.
happen.
I do think in terms of the attack, you mentioned the lack of runs in behind, some of the lack of the energy there. I think we can point to that, and we can see it, and we can identify it, and it's a fairly reasonable conclusion to say that they weren't choosing those things. I don't know if that's, again, is that mentality? I mean, okay, so let me put up a couple of quotes from Mauricio Pochettino, since we're going to stick on this story. I don't know if we're going to get to all of our long balls today, because this is going to dominate, and people in the chat are talking. We are USA. You cannot win with your shirt, or you cannot win if you play here, there, I don't know. You need to show, and you need to come here and be better and suffer and win the duels and work hard. If not, it's not going to be enough. Now, he clearly sees a mentality problem, right? If he's talking about this, he sees a mentality problem for the U.S. men's national team. I don't know, again, last bit of energy and all those things. You can very easily get lost in the sauce of judging just mentality and effort when there are, again, clearly other things that the national team has problems with. In terms of the tactics, in terms of where people are playing, how they're playing, the game that they're playing. Not just mentality, but just understanding what the game's going to give you. You are on a field that is 69.99 yards wide. That is tiny compared to international standards, generally speaking. It's stupid that CONCACAF played these finals at SoFi Stadium. I know it's a dress rehearsal for next year, and they're going to expand the field, but it wasn't for this. I think it's not an excuse because you knew what it was going in, but it does stink. And again, if Pochettino did not appreciate what the challenge was and did not set up his team to figure out a way to beat Panama when you didn't have width and you knew they were going to clog the middle of the field, that's on him as a manager as much as it's on the players and their mentality. And this again, Pochettino's putting it on the players a little bit, and I'm not sure. I think this is a warning sign. It's not fuera Pochettino yet, but this is not great, right? He said the crowd's not an excuse. Why weren't we more aggressive? I think the analysis is simple. If we look at the duels won, it's clear that we lost those to Panama. When the game is played in tight spaces, when winning duels is important, where recovering possession means you're in a 1-versus-1 situation and you're disorganizing the opponent, when possession is won consistently in the final third, that's always going to favor a team as organized as Panama. And when you don't show the best version of yourself, things get complicated. All right.
Hey,
All right.
You can't argue with that.
He could have played. I mean, maybe it's a mentality thing. Maybe he didn't think it was there. He could have played Gio Reyna at least for the last half hour to try to figure it out.
The quote on that was, I looked to see, because, to each his own, he picked his team, whatever. But when things were getting a little hectic and he needed the goal, and obviously he needed the goal to advance, he thought that he had more time. When asked about Gio and possibly Diego Luna, he said, I think we'll just put him in extra time or save him for the next game. And so obviously that to a degree speaks to him maybe not thinking that Panama was the biggest of challenges.
So why? Yeah, exactly. Now look at we just talked about the record, Robert. We just talked about how Panama has made life difficult for the United States of America, right? And again, bring it in, saying the same thing. We went into a game where we knew Panama would put everyone behind the ball and sit back with 4 holding defensive midfielders, and then we changed 1 defensive midfielder for a holding midfielder. He's talking about Jack McGlynn, right?
Yeah.
So why not play? It's a lot of bodies, right? But we've seen Reyna 1 and 2 touch, quick combination, play players in. He set up Balogun a couple times. There was a moment, I think it was probably early second half because obviously Sargent came off. There was a moment when Christian Pulisic ends up on the ball in the D. So what are we talking about?
20 yards out.
20 yards from goal. And Josh Sargent is onside and in space. And Christian Pulisic could slip him in. But he doesn't. He takes a shot. I believe it went out for deflected off a Panamanian player, and there was a corner, which obviously turned into nothing because corner kicks also a problem last night. I don't think delivery was always bad, but definitely something was missing in terms of the way the U.S. was attacking set-piece opportunities. But if that's Reyna on the ball in that position, maybe he slips in Josh Sargent. Maybe it's a different moment. I mean, it's all what-ifs, right? Panama deserved to win the game because they scored a goal. The United States had more possession. They created more chances. They had more shots. Doesn't matter. If it says 0, if it's a big goose egg on your side of the scoreboard, doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're doing something wrong. And I just got to say, all this talk is undone if Patrick Ajame finishes off that great move there at the end. But great save by the Panamanian goalkeeper.